Yo, what's going on, guys? Okay, so welcome to the Traders Reality Projections channel, episode 15. All right then, if you watched yesterday's video, you would have had the understanding as to why XRP could have held its zone and why it effectively held its zone. Okay, now today there may have been some news announcements. Frankly, I don't really follow news announcements, but one thing we do understand is this: market makers like to use the news to complete levels and cycles quicker. If you watched yesterday's video, you would have understood that the projection zones that you see in front of you, this previous area of consolidation, this area right here, market makers had effectively absorbed all the longs to the downside with anticipation to close them at a higher point later on. Notice how XRP formed what we would deem as a variation of a W, which is actually a head and shoulders, inverted head and shoulders, should I say. Okay, you can see that right there. All right, vector candle 1, 2, and 3 came into the zone. The one thing that I was saying to you guys yesterday was to pay attention to the fact that the vector candles were not closing towards the lows. That meant that they didn't favor lower prices, okay, or they didn't want price to go too low. All right, notice this candle here, spiked the low, came back up. Spiked the low, came back up. One last attempt to suck in all the guys to go short. And then she reverses price all the way back up and comes and tests the zone, retrace, continuation to the upside. All right. XRP has performed very well. She's finalizing this projection zone that we took from yesterday. I'm anticipating another move to the upside to effectively complete the 1611594 zone. Once that zone is complete, we then will be on our way to fulfilling the final projection point of 1.85, which is what I'm anticipating XRP to achieve. Okay. So that is XRP for you right there, guys. She's performing beautifully, and I'm really happy with XRP right now. She showed all the signs. Yesterday, she hit the range daily low, bounced away from it. That was the first signal for me. She recovered the previous red candle here, and then she started to, if you notice, this candle here was very consistent with what Bitcoin did. So let me flip over to Bitcoin. You see here, Bitcoin came with the notable volume. They wanted to keep price above the key notable area. Okay, now if you notice it, this activity was below the 55 mark, and we understand that market makers like to build their longs below key notable areas so that they can absorb the best possible price at the lowest point, so that when they break through the 55 mark, they've managed to obtain all the liquidity and see the best profit. Okay. Now, granted, Bitcoin hasn't actually broken cleanly away from the zone, but she's currently operating at the pivot and also confirming the M2. What we understand is the M2 confirmed implies that the M4 will be seen at a later point, which you can see right here. The projection zone is the next zone of interest for the market makers. More importantly, you can see the psychological high and the low coming into play. Whenever price gravitates towards this zone, you're going to see some interesting price action. One thing that can lead to the next is this, right? If they reject the psychological low, Bitcoin could actually drop further. Okay, but she's managed to stay above the daily open, which is this blue line right here. More importantly, if Bitcoin does break above the psychological low, a breakaway and a retrace back down, continuation back to the upside should come into play, which would take us to the test of the psychological high, which sits in line with the previous zone right here. Okay. Now, if Bitcoin does continue to take up this zone, granted, we should see another retrace back to the 50 EMA, which would effectively form the pattern and then rise to the upside to effectively take the future projection point of 59. And then we anticipate the 60 mark to come into play. Notice that they will actually start building positions below the 60 mark. So we could see a little bit of a consolidation below it so that they can absorb the best price below the 60K and then get their orders filled straight into and break away from the 60K mark. Now, the fact that Bitcoin and XRP are doing this behavior, let's have a look at Ethereum. Brilliant. I mean, what's interesting is if you go and look at last week's projection video and last week's streams, you would understand that when Ethereum holds, XRP and Bitcoin move. She did it last week. If you notice on XRP and Bitcoin, right, when they were forming the level 1 rise, there you go. There's the level 1 rise right there. They consolidated for a period of time. They held the zone, spiked to the low, brought it back up, and then they broke out whilst Ethereum was consolidating. Are we witnessing the same thing again? Remember, XRP right now is effectively working towards level 2 rise. Level 2s and level 1s can take as long as they need to, as long as they don't violate the previous consolidation. XRP didn't violate that. Look, the pin to the low right there didn't take out the previous pin of the consolidation zone right there. Look at Bitcoin. She did exactly the same thing. If we zoom out, you can see clearly. Didn't take out the previous low. That means that the level is still intact. Level 1 is still intact. Rise, retrace, continuation to the upside. Now it appears that we have effectively a W formation, which is actually an inverted head and shoulders pattern. If you take this as the left shoulder, you take this area as the head, and then you take this previous consolidation zone right there as the right shoulder. Okay. Now, Bitcoin needs to maintain this structure in order to continue higher. But granted, it's an uncertain market. At a moment's notice, Ethereum could break up to the upside and both Bitcoin and XRP could actually just hold their zones. All right. But this is the nature of the game we are in, guys. We pay to play. Coming over to Ethereum, you can see clearly that Ethereum now is effectively holding what we would deem as the right shoulder. If you watch yesterday's projections channel and last night's stream, you would have understood the build up to this. Now, what's quite interesting is the fact that Ethereum is actually holding. She's hit the 50 EMA 3 times, 1, 2, and 3, and completely moved away from it. Price is trading towards its daily open. If it doesn't break further to the upside, we may have actually caught what we would be deemed as the top for Ethereum. Okay, how will that be affected? How will it affect everything? Well, there's 1 or 2 things that could happen. If Ethereum drops, Bitcoin could drop, and so could XRP. Or if Ethereum drops, people are taking money out of Ethereum, putting it into XRP and Bitcoin. So we're going to try to establish effectively the fractional disparity between the two. Okay, between the 3 coins, sorry. All right. So I do hope that helps you guys. And guys, please go back and watch the previous projections. All right. It helps you realize the way the pattern plays out. All right. The more you watch the pattern playing out, the more you're going to be able to come to the screen and determine whether or not a pattern is going to play in the light of how well the candlesticks form. Notice how there's not much notable volume appearing in this area. I'm not really seeing market makers stepping in. Granted, if I go down to the lower time frame, all right, on the 15-minute time frame, you can see what is happening. You can see that they are actually building shorts at higher prices, okay, but they're not really going anywhere. She tapped the high of the M3 point there, tapped it once, pulled back, tapped it again, pulled back. This next tap towards that zone needs to effectively determine whether or not Ethereum is going to continue higher or not. But I'm not seeing traction to the upside. I'm not seeing notable candles selling off at the highs. Yeah, which is market makers absorbing longs at the highs, at the lower point at the highs. Do you understand? So all that is left to do right now, guys, is to wait and see how Ethereum is going to play out. All right. This is a mental framework to help you guys understand, you know, the reason for your entry. What do you need to see for Ethereum to be valid as a drop to the downside? Well, Ethereum needs to completely break below the 50 EMA. She needs to do that. For me to convince myself that there is a short play ready, a break of the 50 EMA, and more importantly, once she breaks the 50 EMA, we need to see her come back and retest it because she could actually continue back up from that point. All right. If she comes and tests the 50 EMA and then rejects it and continues down, you have effectively got what we would be deemed as the pattern. All right. So I hope that helps you guys. Forgive me if it's been a little bit late today, but I bid you all well. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. It's free of charge. Happy days. Peace.